right, welcome back to the War Room. I'm here with almost the full squad. We almost got Karsten on here too, but we got a bunch of the OGs in here. Bert, Thomas, how we doing, boys?
Phenomenal.
Pretty solid. Can't complain.
Okay. Did we make it through another weekend of college football? Make it through another weekend of college football
together.
Sanity?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Because I lost my sanity in week 3 after the Miami game.
Week 2.
But I'm glad y'all still have yours.
Week 2.
Yeah. Was it week 2?
Last week was Auburn. Oh wait, no. It was week 2 because week 3.
Yeah.
3 was Auburn. Week 4 was Arkansas, and we played Bama this week.
Yeah. Okay. Got it. Anywho, we'll dive into some college football today, along with NFL, and even kind of preview some of the MLB shenanigans we got going on next week because it is finally October, baby. So with that being said, let's go ahead and dive right into the NFL talk. And to open, I feel like just because of the pure shock from last weekend, it's only appropriate we start with the Texans. Texans coming out with a 30-6 win on the Pittsburgh Steelers. We put J.J. Watt in the Ring of Honor on the same day. CJ Stroud throws for 300 passing yards and 2 touchdowns. Once again, he is the first quarterback to have 300 passing yards and 2 touchdowns in 3 straight games as a rookie since the 1970 NFL merger. So, hey, the boys heating up. Texans look like they got a guy. What are our thoughts, guys?
Bro, I'm so excited because we talked about this in one of our other episodes before, just talking about how the Texans won the draft, right? You had all this notion of like, oh, the Texans are, they're going to start slow. We should have drafted Bryce Young, all this stuff, CJ Stroud, great replacement, solid guy. Really like great offseason signings with Jimmy Ward, Denzel Perryman, all these different things. But no one would have expected the Texans to be in this, like, at all. Like, we had the week 1 where, we played the Ravens. This was our first game together. It was CJ's debut. Honestly, CJ didn't even look super bad, but our defense looked horrible because we were just letting everything through. But you see week 2 and against the Colts, we still didn't look good, but week 3. Completely different team, and we have to keep in mind CJ Stroud's been looking like not just the best, one of the best rookie quarterbacks in the league. He's looking like one of the best NFL quarterbacks in the league. Period. He's thrown, I think, 12 or I don't even know. He's thrown 100 or 1,200 yards. I would say a minimum of maybe like 6 or 7 touchdowns so far this season. He's number 4. And total passing yards in the NFL. Homie's looking like a bona fide generational talent. He's a leader on and off the field. Our offense is moving. He's making Nico Collins look like Megatron 2.0. I mean, our defense finally has our stuff together. You see Will Anderson already getting double teamed. And our secondary, Steven Nelson's looking like a stud. Like a stud. We have our secondary looking actually competent. We have Jimmy Ward and Petrie.
Stingley when he gets back healthy, too.
And remember, we're doing all of this without an O-line. We're literally running out 2, second, third,
we played one starter.
2, second,
one
third,
starter.
4th string O-line, man. Been sacked once in the last 2 weeks. So it shows 2 things. One, our O-line is tremendously improved and from top to bottom. And 2, CJ Stroud is playing like a seasoned veteran, right?
Yeah.
You see him having that pocket awareness. You don't see him making throws he doesn't need to throw. You don't see him taking unnecessary sacks. You see that in the big goose egg in that interception department. He's looking like an absolute rock star this season. Maybe like he's probably a top 10 quarterback right now in the NFL.
So let me jump in real fast because you touched base on this kind of minorly, and it's really comes down to the O-line, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's something that just doesn't seem to add up in my mind, and that's you have how many starters missing last week against the Steelers?
A lot.
Four. And yet you're going up against one of what is considered one of the best pass rushing defenses in the league. And yet you're giving up 0 sacks. Something seems fishy with that. I don't know.
We were putting JJ in the Ring of Honor, dude. They were being polite, okay?
I understand, but there's just a question mark, right? It seems to me that, I mean, it's still early in the season. There's still a lot of questions that have to be answered.
Sure.
And I just am questioning the ability of the offensive line. I think it's improved over the past couple of weeks, but I still think there's a lot of question marks that need to be addressed up front.
Absolutely. And
Damian Pierce still has an 100-yard rushing game, so I mean, there's the big hole we have right now.
You could see that in our rushing our run block. It isn't the best, but you can see in our pass block. That's where our money is. That's where our money is, right?
No, absolutely.
And not to mention, we get to see that this upcoming week because I know Tunsil, Scruggs, and Howard are back this week. Hopefully, are playing in the game on Sunday. But credit, point to you. It's so weird because you have a top 10, maybe even top 5 defense in the Steelers get just obliterated by the Texans. But you can't knock the Texans.
No,
you can't just be like, oh, the Steelers are so we're awful on offense, which is true. But dude, the Texans were on cloud 9. CJ Stroud had the command in the pocket. He was throwing throws. He was like Aaron Rodgers threw in his MVP seasons.
So I think this is going to be the direction the Texans kind of take this season. I think you're going to have games where you have everything on point and you see the Texans really shine and show kind of the trajectory of the whole franchise, right? And then I think you're going to see some games where we kind of take a couple steps back. And I think that's the true nature of how this season is going to play out for the Texans. And frankly, we haven't touched on this at all, but I think you really have to look at Nick Caserio in this past offseason, and especially in terms of draft picks, and you have to say, what a freaking genius. Because remember, when the Texans traded up to get Will Anderson, they gave away their pick for this next upcoming draft. So you put money in your corner saying, we're going to push all of our chips in on our ability to win this season. You are playing in the AFC South. There's not as good of competition.
Well, you have Jacksonville.
You do.
Credit. Jacksonville hasn't looked as good, and the Texans beat them in convincing fashion. But I'm sure they're going to get – Doug Peterson's going to get them together throughout the season. So I'm sure Jacksonville will come back. The Colts, even though they barely lost their last couple games, right? Or they're
went to OT with LA.
I think they're 2-2 right now. They barely lost. Anthony Richardson looks really freaking good.
Dog.
So and the Titans are the only team I'm really but I would say I would say that division is a lot closer. It's wide open by all means.
It is. And that's why
it's a lot tighter. It's a lot tighter than we would think.
But that's why I say credit to Nick Caserio for seeing the writing on the wall and knowing that we are going to get better value from Cleveland's pick as opposed to our pick. So again, I think that you're now seeing, CJ doing what he was drafted to do. You're seeing defense under D'Amico kind of getting their feet a little more settled. I still think you're going to have ups and downs in the season, but to say that you're not going to you still can make the playoffs is my point that I'm trying to make. I mean, I don't think there are any.
Talk about playoffs, guys. I mean, let's look at the next couple of games we've got going on here.
Yeah,
Okay, so
we're playing.
we got Falcons.
We got Falcons is winnable.
Falcons should be a winnable game. Saints depends on the day. Flip of the coin. Panthers should be a winnable game. Buccaneers that might be a little bit tough with the way they're playing.
Should be a winnable game.
Bengals, they're playing like cheeks right now, straight cheeks. Bengals terrible. Joe Burr not found. Joe Shiesty is missing. I don't know what's going on with him. Actually, I do. We'll get into that later. Cardinals depends on the. I mean, Josh Dobbs, he's okay. Jaguars, cheeks. Broncos, worst team in the league other than the Chicago Bears. And then we got the Jets, flip of the coin. Titans, flip of the coin. Browns.
Here's the thing with the Buccaneers though. The Buccaneers wins this season were against the Vikings, the Bears, and the and the Saints, right? So the two of the 4 teams that they played weren't really that good. The Vikings are San Diego, the Los Angeles Chargers of the NFC, where they're so good on paper, but they can never win a game. Speaking of why they're 0-4, the Bears are beyond awful.
Oh my Lord.
Allowed Denver to come back and win. Yep. Then they played the Eagles, lost 25-11, and then they played the Saints without Derek Carr.
Fair.
And that's a game. That's a game where Alvin Kamara came back from his suspension, got 13 catches for only like 50-something yards, I think, or maybe even 30. So you can see how they were dumping the ball a lot. So it's not like that their offense without Derek Carr is very efficient. And I think actually Derek Carr might have played this game, but he had a shoulder injury, so he wasn't like he was fully healthy launching the ball to Chris Olave or Michael Thomas. But overall,
or
that offense back. Exactly. So I wouldn't be too concerned about the credit to the Buccaneers. They looked a lot better than a lot of us realized with Baker Mayfield. But I don't think they're as good as the record says they are, because you have to look at the games that they played. But I think honestly, all of the next 4 games the Texans play are against every team in the NFC South, which 2 of them played the Panthers, and the Panthers are 0-4 right now. So I would say
Panthers need to be a dub.
I say, and after the next 4 games, we go 6-2. Right. Who do we play next? After the South?
Bengals.
Bengals, winnable game. We'll get into why the Bengals have been looking like absolutely cheeks. My theory is Joe Burrow has Sam Bradford syndrome, where you play really good in your contract year, make a bag, and suck until you're not.
Well, I tell you what, let's just go ahead and transition into around the league. So, like with the Bengals, kind of looking into the film myself, and then also kind of doing some research for some other sources on Twitter. I think the best explanation from why the Bengals offense hasn't been working is 2 things, and I'll try to be as brief as I can. Number 1, they haven't changed their offense at all. They're like 99% running out of shotgun, which means your ability to do play action is extremely limited because no one's buying your fake, because all you're doing out of play action and shotgun is just this.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not going under center and trying to do play action, then defenses just won't bite it. Not to mention that they just are pass-heavy offense to begin with. So there's that, because defensive coordinators in the NFL have found out a really, really good way to defend that nowadays. It used to kind of just be like overwhelming and whatnot, especially 8 years ago when Philadelphia was doing that. Nowadays, especially over the course of this year, that style of offense has become easily defendable, especially when that's all you have in the bag. Number 2, we have to take into account Joe Burrow's calf injury. Why is that important? Well, 1, he's hurt, right? Not as mobile. But number 2, when you can't set your feet as well as he can at this current moment, he's kind of a statue, and he can't rotate in the pocket as well. That essentially makes you a first and maybe second read quarterback, which means if your first or second option isn't there, you ain't going to be able to swing your hips back over to the other side of the field and look for options 3 and 4. It's really turned into a single read quarterback only. And for teams that don't play a lot of man coverage, like what he's been facing, unless they're in the red zone and they do a lot of zone, your first read, if you're trigger happy on your first read because you know that you're not going to be able to extend the play at all and roll out, or even to his extent with how bad his calf injury is, be able to flip his hips. honestly, it's going to be pretty bad because you're looking at, hey, if that first option looks remotely doable, I'm just getting it out of there because one, my offensive line sucks along with that, and two, I can't move. So if he looks remotely open, we're just throwing it in there and see what happens, and that ain't been working.
Yeah.
And also, Joe Mixon hasn't been doing good either.
Here's the thing with Burrow. It's like you pay him all that money. I think it was like $275 over 5, I believe, with a lot of that guaranteed. It's like if you have your star quarterback that you just paid $250 million for, why don't you sit him? It's the beginning of the season. Yes, you're probably going to have to take losses. I would much rather have my star quarterback that I paid a boatload of money for sit and recover rather than him become a liability to my offense and make it not efficient. Like you said, Cole, he's only going to look at his first 2 options because he can't move as well because of his calf. And that's just it. All starts with the quarterback. You see Jamar Chase is starting to get frustrated, saying how he's always open. You have T. Higgins, who put up a goose egg in week 1, I believe. No targets and no catches, obviously. You have Joe Mixon not being able to do anything because of that awful O-line, which makes you think, why haven't the Bengals, yes, they tried to sign Lyle Collins from the Cowboys, but they just cut him. So it's not like they're improving at all. They're back to square one. It makes you think, why not just trade your draft capital? Embrace the Rams GM mindset. F them picks, bro.
Screw them picks.
Exactly. Go and trade for O-line. Literally around the league. Get Brandon Sheriff out of Jacksonville. Try to honestly, if I was the Bengals, I'm not saying they're going to do this at all. I'm just saying something interesting you could look at is trading for Trent Williams out of San Francisco. Overpaying maybe a little bit to get Joe Burrow that help. I mean, we've seen them in the Super Bowl, so it's not like they're rebuilding. They have the pieces to go far. One major mistake was them letting Jesse Bates walk. That was a horrible mistake in letting him go to Atlanta because that bumps down your offense. As much as I hate him, Eli Apple, you let him walk. I know he was pretty awful, and he kind of gave up the game-winning touchdown in the Super Bowl.
He was awful in the playoffs, especially.
Sure, but in
the regular season, he was
helped.
good.
He helped. And it's like you let these pieces go, but you're not willing to sacrifice draft capital for a win-now team. Especially for O-line to protect your $250 million with a B quarterback. I just don't get. And
so here's a question.
With him being not mobile, he can't extend the play, meaning that linebackers can kind of focus more on dropping in coverage and not having to respect his ability to run. So it's a nightmare. So not only is he down to 1 or 2 reads, he can't extend the pocket. I'm sorry, not extend the pocket, extend the play, or create runs on his own. He's trying to do 1 or 2 reads, and linebackers can drop even deeper because they know he's not going to run it.
Bert, I think you had something.
I was going to say something, but I kind of lost my thought.
Okay, well,
a little bit.
Let's move on to another dumpster fire at the moment, and that is the Pittsburgh Steelers. My lord, was I expecting
Matt Canada? Goodbye,
bro. Matt Canada needs to go. Was I expecting us to possibly win on Sunday? Yes. Was I expecting Pittsburgh to put up 2 field goals, get Kenny Pickett hurt, and then proceed to do nothing else? Was I expecting them to run a stupid 4th and 1 call that ended up getting Kenny Pickett hurt? No.
That offense is atrocious. It has 2 things, 2 glaring red flags, right? You have Matt Canada who needs to leave, who I heard a quote, he doesn't even believe in his own offense. Like his offense isn't even efficient.
Did you hear the quote? It was when you're down as much as we were, we're not built to come back from something like that.
Yes. Which
I mean, come on,
you don't want that from your OC. But 2, it also throws into question: Kenny Pickett is not the guy. He is not him. You trade Pickett for a 2nd-round pick, tank and give Mike Tomlin his first losing season, right? To get you Caleb Williams or Shador or Drake May, right? I heard on the Colin Cowherd show someone mentioned this. You trade TJ Pickens 2 first round picks to go up to number 1 because they have a history in drafting great D line. So you can get away with to get Caleb Williams, a generational talent quarterback. I'm not saying they do it.
I think you're overthinking.
Trading TJ.
I'm not saying they do it, but here's the thing. I could see why they could to get a generational quarterback, which they only drafted one in the last 30 years in Ben Roethlisberger. So you don't really have you try to draft Pickett. Pickett isn't panning out. You try to get Trubisky. He's the backup, and he didn't look the best against the Texans. But you have a history in drafting a really well D-line, Cam Hayward, TJ Watt. So you could trade TJ to bump up the values instead of trading 5 first-round picks, right? You could trade 2, get rid of TJ, put him in a better – or not a better situation, but put him in a different situation, right? Get that number 1 overall pick, draft D-line, but get Caleb Williams to make that offense more efficient.
I'm not completely dissing Kenny Pickett at the moment. I think the first step needs to be getting rid of Canada and going from there.
Oh, 1 million. I'm just saying.
What I'm saying is I have seen so many situations. I mean, my college team is a pure example of this right now, where you have a quarterback that has been grown up in a system, and he almost becomes victim to the offensive coordinator system. Getting somebody else in there who understands what you're trying to do offensively and kind of the pieces that are there can really accelerate an offense. I'm not completely saying tank.
Sure, but
this isn't a blow up the offense kind of.
Sure, but this makes you think though. It's like, well, Pickett isn't looking good it's not like he's not looking good at all. Like, a lot of the balls he's been throwing have been underthrown, which is why in the Texans game he underthrew that ball and Steven Nelson came down with the pick. Right? He just hasn't been making good reads. Credit the defense.
There's a lot of things that can affect. There's a lot of things that can affect the quarterback's accuracy, and it's
like
not
a bad offensive coordinator, a bad offensive line.
That's true, but I'm just saying that could be a question that raises. I'm just saying though that raises concerns where you're like, maybe Caleb Williams. Maybe we should make a play for Caleb Williams.
I guess where we have to leave it is
that enters your mind is what I'm saying.
Yeah, but I think where we have to leave it is like, look, as far as for this season, I don't think we've seen good enough flashes from Kenny from last year and the first couple of games this year to where if I was to pick between, like, if I had to choose, I would choose firing Matt Canada over tanking and benching Kenny Pickett.
1,000,000%. I'm just saying, what? Maybe I should phrase this better. You fire Matt Canada literally yesterday,
and then you see how it goes.
But exactly, and if Pickett doesn't get better in a new system, then that's where you start thinking we have some generational quarterbacks in this year's draft.
Well, Shador may wait till next year though.
I'm talking about Drake May. Michael Penix.
May's for sure going. Caleb is also kind of a 50. It depends on who the team is.
We're going to get into college football in the next couple minutes, but you have Michael Penix, who's been on fire lately.
Yeah.
You have Caleb Williams. You have Drake May. Bo Nix. You have a ton of great quarterbacks that have better profiles than Pickett coming out of college. And if Pickett doesn't improve, sure, yes, you're going to have an offense change in the middle of the season, which no one likes. But that's when you start thinking, maybe Drake May or maybe Bo Nix is looking a little enticing right now. Maybe we should trade Kenny Pickett for a second-round pick. Maybe you capitalize on value. I don't know, but I'm not saying Matt Canada needs to be fired. No ifs, ands, or buts. That needs to happen yesterday. Kenny Pickett, I say you wait the rest of the season, see how he plays, and then you start thinking, okay, we have quarterbacks that are really good. Do we go quarterback in the draft this year? Do we trade up for Caleb Williams and set our quarterback for the next 10, 15, 20 years?
Hey, if you do bad enough, you won't have to worry about that, buddy. You'll be pick 1. I mean, I guess
that's just a thought. That's I'm not saying that I'm just saying that comes into your mind at this point. But yeah, I don't know. The Steelers dumpster fire. Freaking, they need to.
Cowboys had a good comeback win. I'll give Bert his props. I know he's been sitting there waiting to talk about this.
Representing.
That's why Dallas is upside down.
So I'm curious to see what happens with the Cowboys. I've seen.
So are the Cowboys.
Flashes. The defense is elite. Like the defense, I mean, best in the league, hands down.
Parsons on a
Sucks Trayvon Diggs got hurt though.
Literally, Lawrence. Trayvon Diggs. That's an unfortunate whole event.
They have Stephen Gilmore, so it's not like they don't have a star corner out there.
But I mean, it opens up a door, right? You can't replace a guy like Trayvon. You just can't.
Oh, 1,000,000%. But it's better this year than it was last year because you didn't have Stephen Gilmore, so you guys were getting absolutely busted over the top.
No,
so you would get in the
I also think the duo of DeMarcus Lawrence.
Stephen, yes, and it's good that you have Stephen Gilmore. So it negates it a little bit. It gets
it's not as big. It's definitely not as big of a deal that Trayvon is now.
Exactly.
But I also think it's easier to cover when you have that pressure of what I think is an underrated duo of DeMarcus Lawrence and Micah Parsons. Like that's it's not being talked about that much, but they're great.
Look, the fact is, when it comes to the Cowboys, I mean, we can sit and rave about their defense, but the fact it's the offense. That's the question mark with the Cowboys is what are they going to do offensively? Now, I've seen them able to move the ball fairly well. The only issue really comes down to red zone, and I don't know. I mean, once you get into the red zone, there's it's a whole different game at that point because you're taking away long balls. The defense is a little more scrunched down. I don't know what is going on from that perspective of things.
Maybe you fought. Let's hear me out. Dan Quinn, that's his defense. There's no way Mike McCarthy has touched that defense. No,
absolutely not.
Maybe you think about this. You fire Mike McCarthy.
Damn, Thomas.
I told you, I'm back with hot takes.
I just don't. So here's the thing, right?
Not this season, not this season. I'm talking about if y'all go and miss the playoffs once again and can't get a playoff, or my bad, you make the playoffs and don't get a playoff win again. Saying.
Again, I go back to this idea of you're moving the ball consistently everywhere on the field except when you get inside the 20-yard line. That doesn't seem like a big problem to fix.
But that comes down to play calling though.
No, it does. You're absolutely right, but
because it's not like they have a bottom 20 or a bottom 10 or bottom 5 O-line.
No, you're absolutely right.
O-line. It's not like they have a bottom 5 quarterback. They have an arguably top 15 quarterback. It's not like they don't.
So here's the thing with Dak. And I have to watch my bias here. I don't think you're going to lose because of Dak.
Sure.
I think you can win with Dak Prescott. You just have to have the right pieces around him. Now,
Sure.
if the problem with that is this, for so many seasons, it's been everybody to blame except Dak. It's offensive line, it's running backs, it's the offensive coordinator, which is why they got rid of Kellen Moore this past offseason. This whole season really comes down to Dak Prescott. Is he going to win or is he not? There are a lot of I can't sugarcoat it. If the Cowboys lose this season the same way they've done in the past couple seasons, it would not surprise me at all if Dak is wearing a different team's jersey.
Honestly, you capitalize on his value right now. I'm sure you could probably get at least a first-round pick.
Again, we go back to this concept of you're not going to lose because of Dak. The question is are you going to win with Dak? That's the question.
And it's been the last several seasons. And that's it gets to a point where it's like, sure, Dak's a great player. Don't get me wrong.
There's a lot of teams out there that would be willing to go get Dak Prescott.
Minnesota Vikings. If they end up turning it around, maybe you make a Kirk Cousins for Dak Prescott swap.
I just don't think the Cowboys are going to trade him anywhere in this season. I think it could be a next season kind of thing.
Off-season kind of thing. Exactly. That's what I'm saying though. You don't just cut him. Obviously, you get
no. You get capital. You get capital.
But you see what happens through this season, because ultimately it's not a argument of the regular season at all. Y'all do great in the regular season.
No,
but regular season doesn't matter. When
you're the Dallas Cowboys right now, all that matters really. The measuring stick when it comes to the Cowboys is the Philadelphia Eagles and the San Francisco 49ers. Can you beat those two teams?
Sure.
Yeah. I mean, if the regular season mattered, then we would have crowned the Minnesota Vikings last year the Super Bowl champions because they had like 14 wins or something like that.
Sure. And that's what you have to look at, though. It's like you have to get to the postseason first. This is the make or break year for Dak. If he doesn't get at least one playoff win this offseason or this postseason, trade him, get a new quarterback in there. You keep your pieces. You have a great receiving core. You have a great O-line, a great defense, a great running back. You just put a new quarterback in there. Maybe
frankly, I think you're going to have to see the Cowboys at least make it to the Super Bowl for them to keep that. I really do.
Or I say NFC Championship.
NFC Championship is for sure.
I can see
NFC Championship for sure. I think if they make it to the Super Bowl, it would kind of seal the deal. But
that would seal the deal. But I'm saying a minimum NFC Championship. If you don't even win a playoff game, you trade Dak, get a new quarterback in there, who maybe could run the offense. Maybe because Dak hasn't been making the best.
See, here's the question though. Here's the question, right? So if you want a quarterback and Dak isn't the answer, the problem would be is you're going to be picking towards the end of the first round.
You trade up.
The question though is this, right? Who is willing? See, that might be a Pittsburgh question, honestly, if what you're saying is right.
There you go.
If you tank, right? If Pittsburgh tanked and you have a very low pick, right? Or high pick, excuse me.
There you go.
I think there's a chance. I mean, Pittsburgh might be in the market. You have an experienced quarterback that has been proven in the NFL. I don't know.
I don't think Pittsburgh. I think Pittsburgh nails out a 500 season. I think that's very possible. So they're not going to have a high pick. But what I could see happening, and it's going to be really freaking hard, really hard to trade into the top three, right?
No, you're right.
Every team.
You have to give up some major pieces.
Every team and their mothers want Caleb Williams, and then you have Drake May and Bo Nix and Shador if he's
Sam Hartman.
The draft. Sam Hartman. But if you can't, maybe you look at a team like, let's say Arizona, make a 1-for-1 swap with Kyler?
I don't know. Arizona, I think Arizona's a whole different situation.
You can try to pull Matt Stafford from the Rams, because the Rams might want to get younger because they have Puka, they have Kyron Williams, they have Cooper Kupp. Cooper Kupp, I believe, is like either 30 or right under 30. Like, that offense is pretty freaking good, and we're not giving them enough credit. But it brings in.
They still don't have a running back figured out, though. The Rams?
The Rams? Yeah, they do. Kyron Williams had 6 touchdowns through the first 4 weeks of the season. Or no, like 4 touchdowns. Yeah,
they had to burn through Cam Akers to figure that out, though. I don't know if he's the long-term solution, but he could be. He could be.
I don't know. He's been through the week 1. He's been looking great, but that's neither here nor there. But my point is, if you're the Cowboys and Dak doesn't pan out this season, if you don't win at least one playoff game or get to the NFC Championship game, you don't blow it up. You just bring in another veteran. You package Dak in so they have a quarterback, or you package him for a high pick and get a generational talent, right? So they're not left without a quarterback. They get a pretty freaking good quarterback in return. So you can draft a quarterback. I would only really do it for Caleb Williams for a number 1 pick. But if I was Dallas, I would get a seasoned veteran, someone who knows the NFL, who's a for sure thing, who won't like screw you over. But you make a big time decision. You really send it. Maybe you make a trade for Derek Carr.
I would prefer to have Dak over Derek.
But my point is,
I love both those quarterbacks, though.
My point
I'm biased though.
You're getting another quarterback, because it's not like, I'm not saying Dak sucks. I'm just saying maybe it's just a system thing where maybe if you bring another quarterback in, he does a lot better. Because honestly, Dak doesn't make the best decisions. He throws a lot of picks. To be fair, half of them are probably not his fault. To be fair, let's say half of them weren't his fault. He's still throwing a lot of picks. So if you get
I don't know. So you're judging all the picks basically off of last season, right?
But no, but that's
he threw his first pick. I think he's only thrown 1 pick this season.
I'm just saying.
Yeah, it was in their loss.
Because we're only 4 weeks into the season. It's still pretty early.
Yeah.
I'm still going off of last season, because they were really good on offense last season.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going off of last season. Because he has a tendency to throw a lot of picks. Just from, not all of them are their fault, but there's some times where it's like, yeah, maybe you shouldn't have thrown that, right? And then if you bring in someone who's a little smarter and more conservative with the ball, maybe you see that improvement. But that's neither here or there. But I think what we do need to get into is talk about some
college football.
College football, because man, oh man, we got some big games this weekend. I know me and Kohl are excited for this weekend. No, we got A&M. We got A&M and Alabama playing this weekend, and we have unfortunately we saw Connor Wigman go down with injury the rest of the season, and we have Max Johnson who stepped in. Max Johnson has looked really pretty good, besides maybe 2 plays against Arkansas. One of them wasn't really his fault on the interception for the pick 6. Just because Anaya Smith and just the receivers didn't really exactly. It didn't really block. That was just a weird play. I wouldn't really say it was Max's fault, but the running where he didn't slide and he fumbled, that was a little questionable. But other than that, he looked good. I know the receivers love playing with him. I know Evan Stewart loves playing with him. I know Anais loves playing with him.
He gets to throw touchdown passes to his brother at tight end.
Exactly, and credit to Auburn, or not credit to Auburn, but Auburn obviously isn't the best team in the SEC. But when Wigman came out, first 2 drives threw touchdowns. So I'm confident. I'm not stressing about Max Johnson. Maybe we see. I heard rumblings of a massacre coming to College Station, and we saw how that played out last time. The legend of Zach Calzada happened, and I think honestly with how A&M season is going, with I believe LSU lost this past weekend to
Yep, they lost to Ole Miss.
You have Georgia almost lost to Auburn. You have in our division in the SEC, I believe it's the SEC West. We have almost sole possession on first place. A&M, because they have, I believe, 2 conference wins, and everyone else is split, either 1-1 or 0-2, which is very good. And as a delusional A&M fan, I know Kohl can relate to me on this as well, but the rest of our schedule doesn't look super hateful. So we have Arkansas. We played Arkansas. We beat them really heavily. Also, Kohl, DJ Durkin finally has turned it around. He's finally learned what a blitz is. Finally stacked more than 3 in the box and sent heat. And look how that turned out. Kohl, I've been saying this. We needed to learn what a blitz was. He finally did, and our defense looks like one of the best in the SEC. But my point is that the rest of our schedule isn't too hateful. When we look, I believe Alabama is really – we have Bama, Ole Miss, and LSU as the real okay, these are some legit teams. And Bama, honestly, I feel like is the best out of all of them. And they're like ranked around each other, but and I feel fairly confident that this weekend we beat Bama. I was more concerned about Arkansas because they almost beat LSU a couple weeks ago. I was more concerned that we would lose to Arkansas than beat Alabama. But I'm with the momentum that we're on, with beating Auburn, with absolutely just dismantling Arkansas, who's a legit team in the SEC. They've just been hit with some. They've had a tough schedule though. They've had a tough schedule so far this season. To be fair, but we play freaking trash teams like Mississippi State. I'm looking at you, Bert.
Hey, I'll admit it.
We play Abilene Christian. We're not playing Georgia. We're not playing Kentucky or Florida, right? So our schedule is very realistic to win out, right? And get a really good bowl game or maybe make it into the playoff. Am I saying that's going to happen? Absolutely not. We're looking at Texas A&M right now. And the Texas A&M of old will beat Bama and lose the very next week. But
we find a way to lose to Abilene Christian.
Exactly. That's what, bro. I was talking to my roommates and I said that. But when you're looking at it on paper, it doesn't look like a tough schedule. Alabama's quarterbacks, Jalen Milroe, has not been looking good at all this season. At all. And they can't play their backup because he's even worse.
So let me tell you something.
These guys barely put up 17 points against USF.
Let me tell you something.
They almost lost to USF.
Yeah.
You guys miss out. I think you guys are going to miss out a little bit. And the reason I say that is because Alabama, I think early in the season, part of the reason why Texas was able to get the win in Tuscaloosa was just the identity, right? Mm-hmm. Alabama was in this transition period where you go from having high quality quarterbacks that could support an all systems go offense. Bryce Young, Tua Tagovailoa, Jalen Hurts, yada yada yada, right?
Yeah.
You're transitioning now towards a very more run heavy type of offense. I think you guys are going to miss out because Alabama is starting to figure out their offense. I think if there's I still like y'all's chances in the game, but I still think you guys are kind of underplaying Alabama a little bit here.
Whoa.
Okay.
For the record, I'm not. Thomas is. For the record.
And here's the other thing. Here's the other thing you need to consider as well, right? Let's look at the two teams you've played from the SEC West.
Mm-hmm.
Arkansas. Where was Arkansas having the preseason polls? And I know preseasons mean nothing. Where were they supposed to finish?
I don't even know.
Right above us. Auburn. I think. What was it? I think it was, and this is from last up to first. I think it was Mississippi State. I think it was Auburn, and then I think it was Arkansas. The team that you guys have played from the West so far are supposed to be the worst of the worst.
Sure,
right?
1 million%.
But now you guys are getting into the part of the schedule you are playing Alabama, the LSUs, the Ole Misses. The one time you guys have faced serious competition this season, what has happened?
Fair enough. But here's the thing with that. DJ Durkin did not blitz a single freaking time that game. Made Tyler Van Dyke look amazing. And to be fair, on Miami's part,
Miami's looking good, man.
Miami's looking phenomenal. So it's not like we lost to some trash team. It's not like we lost to Vanderbilt or something. Like, if we were to lose to anyone, that's a decent team to lose to. I think they're in the top 15 right now. Honestly, I feel like Miami would beat Bama. To be completely honest,
you're fair. I think that's fair.
Our defense looked awful that game. Our offense, we were trying to run the ball into a brick wall so we wouldn't throw the ball. The more we threw the ball, and we found this out the last 2 weeks, the more we threw it, the better we've looked. We were able to get a lot of stuff going in the passing game. Our running game is still a little iffy, but I'm saying if we throw the ball and we blitz and we don't just sit in coverage, I feel like we've seen it, and it's not like we barely beat Arkansas like LSU did. We curb stomped Arkansas. Arkansas. So that's what makes me, and it wasn't even our offense that looked fantastic. It was our defense that looked.
No, you're 100% right. Your defensive front is very good. They have made major improvements.
And our special teams looks amazing. Yes, Arkansas and Auburn aren't the best teams in the SEC West, but they're also not, like, comparing to other teams. They're not awful. I mean, Arkansas is KJ Jefferson, who coming into the season was a top quarterback in the SEC. Arkansas played pretty decently last year or 2 years ago with Traylon Burks. They don't have many receivers, so it's a lot harder to throw the ball, to be fair. But they have a stud running back that we completely shut down.
Yeah,
so
they'll shut down Rocket.
This is why it encourages me. It's like a momentum builder, right? You get, like, let's say you were fighting in the MMA or something. You want to get a couple of tune-up fights to get you ready for that bigger competition, right? This is how I see it for A&M. We get those couple of conference. We got killed by Miami, who was a amazing team this year. Luckily, it was out of conference, so it doesn't count towards anything.
It definitely does, but that's okay.
But it'll factor into playoff decisions if it comes down to that.
Like conference play.
For conference play, yes, but let me tell you something. Like A&M, like this gets into a discussion me and Kohl had over text message. You guys need to be on a whole different level of comparison. Your standards need to be national championships, not.
Sure, but I'm just
all right.
My point
let me time in here.
I'm just comparing to just the rest of the SEC, who are notorious.
You should not be.
Right now.
Which teams in the SEC? Because you need to be a little more specific on that.
I think we can be competitive against Bama, Ole Miss, LSU, which are the top 3 teams we're really playing this
Maybe
year.
Vanderbilt.
I feel like
here's the question though, right? What has LSU done against Compton? Like, what did LSU do against Florida State? What did Alabama do against Texas?
Florida State's a top 5 team in the country.
Exactly my point.
That almost lost to Clemson.
What are you trying to say A&M's standard is on this season?
Honestly, if
we're just looking for hope, Bert. Okay.
No, that's Mississippi State.
Honestly, I feel like we could make it to the national championship. I'm saying if we win out, we can make it to the playoff, which is very, very possible.
It is very possible, but I don't think you're going to be able to get in without. If you get another loss anywhere in your schedule, you're done.
All right, hold on. Let me time in here because I've been bottling this up too long. Let me time in.
I'm saying if we win out, which is a very real possibility.
I don't think you're going to beat Georgia, though. I don't.
Playing Georgia this season, though.
Yes, you are. If you go to the SEC championship, you will be playing Georgia.
Georgia almost lost to Auburn.
Who else in the West or East is going to beat Georgia?
Bert,
is it Tennessee? No.
I know Cole's about to explode. Cole, you're welcome. I stopped. You are now able to uncap that bottle.
Thank you. I'm so happy I get to talk on my own show. Anywho, okay, couple things here. Number one, the defense does look better in regards to A&M, but I'm skeptical for many reasons. And as long as DJ Durkin is our defensive coordinator, I will always be skeptical. Mainly that the defensive line technique still doesn't look better. We just started playing better as far as, like you said, we threw some more blitzes. We were more aggressive. We still have a weaker secondary that I'm, used to A&M seeing, which really got showcased in the first 3 games of the season. And more importantly, the defensive line is talented. You got Walter Nolan, Fidel Diggs, a lot of really good talents. Linebacker core looks really good with Edger and Cooper leading it. The main problem I have is just the overall scheme is still flawed, in my opinion. I mean, I still can't get over DJ Durkin lining up in an odd man front in his own red zone. Not to mention the fact that half the time we run a 4-man front, we let our defensive ends pretty much head up over the tackle, and then they try to edge rush from that position, and they're just attacking guys right down the middle, like they're just out of JV on a high school team. Whoever the D-line coach is for A&M, either that person or DJ Durkin, both need to go. Should have went last year because we saw this last year as well. Both need to really go. However, look, past 2 games, things look like a lot better as far as just production, right? We had a lot more sacks, a lot more pressures. Secondary looked a little bit better. Honestly, they kind of benefit. The secondary looks a lot better because of the fact we have so much pressure on the quarterback. But on the flip side of that, good secondaries can look a lot worse when quarterbacks like Van Dyke have 5, 6, 7 seconds back there to chill and throw the football. No secondaries can hold up against that.
And when you're playing Auburn and Arkansas,
hey, Auburn's got a great Auburn's got a great defense, terrible offense. But more importantly, what it comes down to, I think, for the Bama match, what it comes down to for the Bama match, in my opinion, is going to come down to the offense. I think the defense. If they have any shortcomings, it's going to be the secondary getting exposed. Yeah. But I don't think if Milrose is starting quarterback, you have to worry about a complete air assault. I think if the defensive line can play with some kind of technique and keep Milroe contained, which if they couldn't keep a quarterback like Van Dyke contained, I'm not optimistic about keeping Milroe contained because that dude's a way better athlete than Van Dyke.
Sure, again.
But still, whatever.
You have to look at the fact that when we played Miami, we didn't blitz at all. We probably the most in the box was maybe 4, maybe. So they were blocking all day because we weren't in a scheme to put pressure in the pocket.
Yeah, but with as talented as our defensive line is, we should be able to rush 4 and at least get pressure some of the time. With as talented as our front 4 is, and whenever we do run a 4-man front, with between Walter Nolan, Fidel Diggs, and others, there
Absolutely.
should be no offense that can sit back there on an average of 5 to 8 seconds like they did in the Miami game. That was abysmal, and it's inexcusable, especially when all 4 of them are sitting there just attacking guys right down the middle like they're on a high school JV team. And on top of that, they're not only not putting pressure, they're also still not containing the quarterback. So it's just they did nothing right in that game for the last half of the game, and it just take me off so much. But anyway, what it comes down to with the Bama matchup is I really think the offense. If the offense can run the ball, that will open up so many doors for Max Johnson. Max Johnson's a guy that A&M couldn't be in a better spot for the spot that they're in, if that makes any sense. I don't think there's an SEC team that is better prepared for losing their starting quarterback than A&M. When your quarterback was a guy who started for an entire season at LSU, came in and won a couple of big games for us last year, mainly beat Miami at home last year, right after Calzada went down. Well, not went down, really just sucked, and many other things. So Max Johnson, I think his decision making is sound. I don't think he's a guy who's going to lose you games. His ball placement is very, very good. He threw an absolute dime, splitting double coverage in the Arkansas game, which was just phenomenal. So I think what it comes down to is we can air it out as long as our run threat is at least like somewhat viable. If we can average at least like 2 to 2.5 yards per carry, then I think we'll be just fine as far as being able to keep the defense honest. On the defensive side of the ball, I would look for A&M secondary to be exposed. If we can't get as much pressure as we were getting in the Auburn and Arkansas games, which granted was a lot, so I don't expect that to repeat itself. But at the same time, Alabama's offensive line has not looked good at all. It's been a pretty big problem for them. They're not highly ranked at all, and people are expecting A&M's defensive line to have a field day. I'm expecting A&M's defensive line to be mid, especially when you have an athlete like Milroe who move around so well and extend plays with his feet. If we couldn't keep Van Dyke contained, I don't know how we're going to contain him. So I think it'll be way closer than what the analytics think it is going to be. To me, it's kind of a coin flip. I think it's going to be really close.
Sure, I agree with you. I feel like though our defense against the Miami game overall was abysmal. Was like the worst thing I've ever seen in my life. Like me and my roommates, we were watching that game after halftime, completely silent, bro. It was all that whole game, offense and I just think we played a bad game in general. Not to take anything away from Miami. Miami
did fine. Offense did fine.
Phenomenal. I think we could have played better because we ran the ball a little too much to try to get something going.
If you're putting up 35, bro, or 38 or whatever it was, my lord.
My point is, in the game, I thought we could have done a lot better. But with the Auburn and Arkansas games, I feel like that allowed our defense to get into its own. So it looks DJ Durkin somehow turned the corner to not look abysmal. So he's able to put more pressure on the quarterback like we did against Auburn and we did against Arkansas. KJ Jefferson, I think, was sacked 10 or 11 times. Like we were getting to the quarterback. We were putting pressure in there. Yes, I agree with you, Kohl. I feel like if anything, our secondary would be the ones to be exposed. But if we're putting enough pressure on the quarterback to where Jalen Milroe will have to try to throw something, I feel like we would be okay with that because I don't feel like it would be accurate enough to be able to land. But I agree with you. I feel like it'll be a lot closer than a lot of people think. But I feel like A&M just edges it out by a field goal or by a touchdown.
The last thing I'll say about the defense is, like, you make a good point. Like, DJ Durkin made some good calls. Excuse me. He got a little bit better. In stepping up the blitz packages, which is great. The blitz packages looked a lot better. The problem is if you can't get any kind of pressure rushing just 4 out of an even front, that's a big problem. Because if you're always having to do some kind of gimmick and you're always having to send somebody to get any kind of pressure, eventually people are going to find a way to start picking that apart. When you can get any kind of consistent pressure rushing forward and still having 7 in coverage, now you're cooking with some grease. So that's what I'm worried about, is that in order to put any kind of heat on Milroe, we're going to have to send somebody, and then on top of that, not being able to contain him. But I think it'll be close. We'll see what happens.
Look at who Bama's played, though. Like, it's not like, yes, Texas, 1,000,000%, they're legit. We'll see when the playoffs comes to see if they're really back. But to be fair, Bama hasn't played anyone like over the top though. Like USF, they almost lost. So I feel like we're way better than USF.
They played Ole Miss.
Sure. Sure.
How did that work out for the old lane train?
But my point is, I agree. I feel like with the momentum that we have on defense, I feel like we're coming into our own. I feel like we're going to put enough pressure on Milroe to throw inaccurately and use his legs a lot more. But, we'll see. But I feel like that we got to talk about Colorado before we get out of here.
I was about to say. Colorado kept it close with what is probably going to end up being a playoff team that has a maybe top 200 defense in USC. I mean, it's the same story, right? Lincoln Riley hit copy-paste when he moved from Oklahoma. We're going to keep an amazing dynamic offense and a terrible defense. As a matter of fact, he kept the same defensive coordinator when he left from Oklahoma. I don't know how he saw how terrible of a defense he had when he was in Oklahoma and said, you know what, I'm going to go to a new place and give me that back. But here we are. But Colorado kind of being resilient and making it really close to the end. I mean, if they didn't, make some stupid decisions and decided to run the ball 3 times and, chew 4 minutes of clock out when they were in the red zone. And, you don't have, I think it's a stupid change they made, but you don't have the clock stopping with the chains moving on first down until you get inside 2 minutes. That it was almost Bill O'Brien Texans style. Like, I used to say in the playoffs with Bill O'Brien, of course it's me, I'm talking about Bill O'Brien, but Bill O'Brien with the Texans, it was almost like in the playoffs, we always had that first down just waste, like throwaway. We do a stupid run play up the middle, running straight into a wall for like a half a yard. It's like, okay, well, good old 2-down Bill O'Brien offense over here. It was kind of like that when they were on that drive trying to cut it to one score, and it just it took too much time off the clock. But it was good to see their offense kind of have a bounce back from the previous week against Oregon with them getting blown out. Thomas, what are your outlooks for Colorado the rest of the season? Do you think they break 500?
Oh, 1,000,000%. Let's pull up their schedule. I'm pulling up their schedule.
So real quick, let me jump in real fast. I think Colorado is going to have pretty close to 500. I'm not sure where exactly they're going to end up on which side of that, but you have to take into account that the Pac-12 this year is relatively
they're ridiculous.
stacked.
They're ridiculous. But
you're talking. People are starting to throw names like Oregon and Washington and potentially possibly making the college football playoff.
Oh yeah,
that's not even talking about USC or maybe
Oregon State, Washington State.
Hey, I think the Pac-12 championship is probably between USC and Oregon. I think Oregon has the potential to curve stop them with how much better their defense is than USC.
Oregon State and Washington State. The Pac-2. Both of those guys were ranked in the top 25.
Utah still looking good.
Utah, another example. I think it's kind of a tough season for Dion to kind of try to turn things around at Colorado, just simply because of the talent, or just because of some of the other teams in the conference and who you're playing.
Well,
the big glaring issue with Colorado has always been up front, right?
Sure.
Until Dion, I think, addresses some of those issues. Remember, it's his first season, guys. He can't move everybody, or he can't put a whole team on the field in one season, even though he surely tried.
He already tripled his wins from the wins from last season.
No, and I think everybody knew that he was going to do that. Come on. I mean, the two teams are totally different. I mean, against TCU, they had one defensive starter come back from the previous season. Everybody else was transferred.
Sure. Like, here's the deal. So I pulled up their schedule. They play Arizona State, Stanford, UCLA, Oregon State, Arizona, Washington State, and Utah. Not an easy schedule by any means, but
it could be worse.
Exactly. I feel like a lot of, and we saw it against USC. To be fair, when they played USC, they didn't have Shiloh at safety. They didn't have Travis Hunter at corner. To be completely fair, I'm not saying two players make the whole thing, but those are two huge
big-time players. Yeah.
Exactly. Shiloh Sanders very much under the radar in regards to how well he's doing. He was leading the Pac-12 in tackles. Like
exactly.
Now, granted, I will say, as a person who played on a defense that was terrible for one of my years, when your safety is your leading tackler,
it's not a good
defense
thing.
Ain't good.
Yeah,
not a good thing.
Oh my goodness.
My point is, it's like in that USC game, I bet you if they had Travis Hunter and Shiloh, we probably would be seeing a different outcome. With Oregon, I don't think so. They just looked awful that whole game. But with USC, I feel like we saw a poise from Dion and from a poise from that whole Colorado team to not give up, even though you were losing 35 to whatever at halftime. And you saw Shador lead that team all the way back just to lose by a touchdown.
Yeah.
That shows a lot of heart.
It shows a lot of things, but I don't necessarily think that's going to amount to anything this season. I think, and we said this coming in to, I mean, Dion obviously made a big splash.
Sure.
Just in the first 4 weeks of the season.
A million.
Huge splash. I think it's going to compare very small to what he's going to do next season. Because now that he has made Colorado a destination, I think you're going to see a lot more emphasis placed on the big guys up front, and that's what's going to get them to be able to compete more with the Oregons and the USCs and the UCLA. And let's not forget, Colorado isn't going to be playing those schools next year. Yeah. Who are they going to be playing?
Big 12.
The Big 12. Texas isn't going to be in there. Oklahoma isn't going to be in there. The big cats, big dogs of that conference are gone. I'm not trying to jump the gun here. I mean, we're only 4 weeks into this season and we're talking about next season. But I mean,
sure. But let's look at the rest of their schedule, because we made the argument that they can make it to 500, which is a huge success for Colorado. Speaking, they only won one game last
No, absolutely, they can.
I believe they beat Arizona State. I believe they beat Stanford. I believe they beat UCLA. Oregon State is going to be a good game. And the reason why I say Oregon State, Washington State, and Utah will be good games, closer than what we would think, is from seeing them against TCU, is from seeing them against USC, right? Just seeing them to be able to fight back, right, and be able to put up points with that kind of like that Lincoln Riley-esque offense, because they can't guard anything without their stars.
So I have to ask a question. When it comes to the skill players at Colorado versus the skill players at the Washington State and the Oregon State, who do you give that edge to?
Depends if Travis Hunter's in the game.
Yeah.
I don't think it does. I don't think it does per se. I think Colorado
definitely makes it close.
I think Colorado, from a skill perspective, I think can compete with almost anybody in the country.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, and I think that goes to another point of it is, even with the transfer portal. And look, I could be wrong about this, but from what I've seen from the transfer portal so far, is I don't want to say easy, but I'm going to say easier. It is easier to find skill players in the transfer portal from all around this country that can make an immediate impact than it is to go and pluck big bodies of O-line and athletic defensive linemen that are edge rushers or big and fast linebackers from the transfer portal. I mean, you look at their roster, right? Weaver, he's from UCF or USF, one of the two. Jimmy Horn came out of nowhere. These are guys that just can't. I mean, the only person that actually got truly recruited on that offense is one of their big standouts that isn't a transfer is Edwards, their running back, who actually Dion coached when he was a kid at like 5 years old, which is crazy. He's a true freshman running back that is a dog. He was awesome the first couple games. I think he's going to continue to do well. But what Colorado doesn't have is consistent. Well, I mean, not even consistent. They don't have the size to match up. On offensive line, they're okay. They still have some errors in picking up pass rushes and stuff like that, but they're okay.
Yeah.
They can get some kind of decent push depending on who they're playing. Defensive line wise, I think they're probably. If I were a betting man, I would bet that they're betting. I would bet that they're giving up more than 3 yards per carry on average.
I'm gonna tell our listeners to do something. The next time you guys watch Colorado play, I want you to watch Colorado's defensive linemen, and I want you to compare the size between them and the offensive line for whoever else they're playing. There is a considerable difference in those two sizes.
Sure, and
their linebackers too. Their linebackers have a significant
their
size.
Linebackers
but they're athletic.
Their linebackers look like defensive backs for Alabama.
Yeah, but they're really athletic. That's the thing.
They are.
I think they're coached decently well.
Back at the season though, I feel like the given games, I feel like Colorado will win.
Arizona State,
Arizona, Stanford, UCLA.
UCLA, I think is a meh.
But for the most part, I feel like those are all like where it's 80-20.
Which that puts them over 500 and in a bowl.
Exactly. And I really do feel like Oregon State, Washington State, and Utah are all coin flips. I feel like they're going to be a lot closer than you would think. Like Oregon's just on another level. Oregon's on their own like thing. But again, you look at USC. Shedeur is able to rally his offense to bring them all the way back for the most part. Yes, they still lost by a touchdown, but you saw that offense get going again. So I feel like if their offense is clicking, I feel like it's going to be really hard to beat Colorado just because they have so many good skill position players, right? If you have Travis Hunter back, if you have Edwards, if you have Horn, if you have it's Michael Williams, maybe, I don't know, the tight end
Weaver.
Caught, like,
the tight end. I don't know.
Sure, whatever.
87, but he's really good.
Exactly. Who caught 4 touchdowns in the last 2 games. Like,
caught one of the tying touchdowns against Colorado State.
Exactly. So I feel like for the rest of the season, it's a very good shot that they go over 500, which is a huge success in year 1 with Dion.
That's the house, maybe.
And then you're going to be looking at the transfer portal. You're going to be looking at
recruiting, legitimate recruiting.
I imagine you, and I still believe that the O-line for Colorado is a little less. It's below. I would say in between average and below average. They're like semi below average, but because you see Shedeur has like no time to talk. He's just an absolute stud, so he's able to extend plays with his legs and get those passes off. Right, but I feel like next year after Dion hits that transfer portal, you're going to get more D-line and more O-line because you see the success that Dion's had, right? And you're going to an easier conference. Yes, it has more teams, but you're going to an easier conference where you don't have to play Oregon, you don't have to play USC anymore, you don't have to play Texas or OU, right? So you're going to see more wins and possibly maybe even a playoff appearance next year because you have the 12-team playoff starting next year.
There's some back and forth on that one.
Yeah,
they're saying now that the Pac-12. They're saying, well, they haven't done anything officially yet, but they're saying that there might be some.
They're waiting to play out. What I've heard is that the board is waiting to do something until the Pac-12 sorts itself out.
We're saying that they're going to the Big 12, period, point blank, just because that's the comparison we drew earlier about Texas and OU leaving. For the sake of the argument, that's what we're going to run with. But you have a potential college football playoff spot a little easier. That could encourage transfers from Alabama or LSU, these big time SEC schools, or these Pac-12 schools, to come in and beef up that linebacker core, that D line, the trenches, which will boost them up even more next season, where you can see maybe them winning 10 games next season, right? So in this year, long story short, huge success already. Point blank. You got a top 25 win in your very first game of the season, right? You're probably going to get, if they stay around the same rankings, I bet you maybe win one or two more top 25 games this season,
They're
right?
swimming
You
their money
end the
because they're
year,
selling out every home game.
exactly. You probably edge in on the top 25 at 23, 24, 25 if you win to end the season there, which is a huge win because they weren't even anywhere close to the top 25 last year with one game won. Then you start the year at probably a top 15 team ranked, and you're going to have a great season. Like, the Deion effect is real. It is real. And then you're going to have maybe Shador staying another year. You're going to have Travis Hunter maybe staying another year as well. Like, you see that team just start stacking up.
Yep.
And bro, this team is going to be scary to watch. If they're like putting up numbers like this, and again, Oregon, I feel like was an outlier because that team just looked amazing. Again, probably will make the college football playoff this season.
So I do have to pose a question, and we don't have to get into it tonight because I know we usually try to wrap these up. So my question, I guess, maybe just to sit and ponder on for you guys is, what is like? Do you think it's Deion pulling all these guys to come over, like through the transfer portal and the recruiting, or is it all the media coverage?
No, it's Deion because a lot of those guys were guys from.
Hey, I said think about it. I said think about it.
Well, the media coverage came. We have to keep in mind one thing. Sorry, I got to answer this one. We have to keep in mind one thing. The initial reaction to Deion leaving Jackson State and going to Colorado was very, very much mixed. Right? It was 50% negative, 50% positive, and I don't want to get into the reasons why on that. But I will say, though, the reasons for it being negative were all freaking stupid. It was a good move for him. Becoming a FBS coach, it's a dream of his. It's great for everyone involved, right? But the players making that decision to go was at the time they had to make it. It was for Deion, right? To go and follow Deion, to go follow Travis Hunter, Shedeur Sanders. The media overhype that we're seeing now, which is almost the amount of overhype that we're seeing that is similar to Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce. That came after the first week 1 win.
Yeah, right? I think.
Then all of a sudden they're on 25 different commercials. ESPN is showing them on every single thing. They were on Fox Big News Saturday, College Game Day. They were on everything. And look, I get it. They were the hot thing. But the reason the players came over when they made the decision 6 to 7 months ago was for Deion and not for the media hype, because the media hype is very much split.
Exactly.
So I guess what we have to think about is all the players coming in this off season. Why is that?
Both.
Now in this next off season, it's for Deion and the hype. We got LeBron and Snoop Dogg showing up to games. We got the baby and also
it could be you're missing a key part too. It's a 3-pronged thing. It's yes, you have Deion, stud coach, great. I feel like even if he's overhyped because of the media, I feel like honestly you could see him as an underrated coach too.
Yeah.
In some ways.
And just a good dude. Like
in some exactly. Loves
great
Jesus,
guy, loves building people with good character, is doing things the right way from what we know.
Exactly. And he has connections to the NFL. Right?
Exactly.
So you have Deion. Then you have the media. So you get seen, you get all that recognition, yes, like all that good stuff. You get primetime games, whatever, which is great. But then you also see the third aspect to where they're a legit team. They're going to be probably a legit team next year, depending on who they get. If they get D linemen, if they get linebackers, if they get O linemen, they're more competitive next year than they would be this year. And they're already a pretty competitive team for the most part. So I mean, you can see, and if you're in college, if you're recruiting players, you're going to be there for 1, 2, or 2, 3, 4 years, maybe even 5 years. So you have that chance to develop in that system.
I don't know. I don't pity the recruits that have to make that decision.
Nope.
You have an offer from Colorado and you have an offer from Georgia. That's hard.
Which one gives you more money? I don't know at this point. But it's close.
NIL.
Sure, but then you also look at it. Well, it depends on your position too. Quarterback, you're not going to Colorado. You would go to Georgia. If you're a D lineman and
I don't know. Bet on yourself.
Georgia, where especially D lineman, where Georgia is stacked at, I might.
Yeah, but they're about to have a lot of turnover.
Sure, but we're saying just this season, like this after this, like I could go on a Colorado team that's going to be on a ton of primetime games and get great PT walking in here, where there's going to be like 5 other 5-star recruit D linemen at Georgia. And that's where you look at that stuff too.
Yeah,
with all these Power 5 schools, SEC schools,
Yeah, no, it's a fair point. But, guys, I think we're starting to run out of time. So I think kind of summarize here. Texans are giving us optimism. Texas A&M football continues to give their fans drinking problems. Not me, because I've grown up with it since I was like 8 years old, so I'm used to it.
And Dion has really cool sunglasses.
Dion has awesome sunglasses. Kids go buy them. Our code is – no, I'm just kidding. The Steelers and the Bengals are a complete dumpster fire. So are the Giants, which we didn't cover. But Danny Dimes, I don't know what's going on. Their offensive line is wide open. I don't know. Colorado is optimistic for being over 500. Oregon looking great. USC looking great, except their defense is complete cheeks. Not looking good at all. And, we're going to come back next week, and there's going to be a million other things to talk about because every college football weekend so far has been a banger. There's been no peace. There's been no peace. Peaceful college football weekend of everything that was supposed to happen happened. It's been absolutely insane every weekend, so it's going to be great. And next weekend, we're also going to have to talk about that October baseball, baby. Stroh's clinched division. No one thought that was going to happen. Not even Stroh's fans. Not even me. Thanks, Seattle. We appreciate it. And thanks, Rangers, for the choke job.
Eat your heart out, Texas.
Yep. Do the Astros have any competent pitchers left? We'll never know. We've got 1 or 2, and then we've got like 5 others that are just like it's a flip of a coin. Jeremy Pena hasn't hit a home run in 3 months, so I'm totally optimistic about that. Sarcasm cannot be overstated.
Hey, maybe he just turns up in the playoffs. Maybe he's like the Robert Horry of baseball.
Hey, postseason Pena last year was fantastic. Let's just hope he shows back up.
As long as he turns up in the playoffs, that's all that matters.
Hey, along with our entire pitching staff right now. But anywho,
next week, fellas. Next week.
Yep, next week we'll be back. To
be continued.
Yep, looking forward to it, guys. We'll go ahead and sign off. See you guys later.